Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. My name is Megan Medlin. I am the founder of the Hub for Integration, Reentry, and Employment. We are a nonprofit organization that works with individuals who are system impacted, helping them get linked up with resources, employment, and get you connected to the communities. So we're super excited today to be hosting one of our workforce readiness workshops. We do host these at least on a monthly basis. This month we do have two. So today we're talking about preparing for college. And later this month on the 27th, we have another workshop on debt management. Next month, we have Disney coming with us on April 10th to talk to us about discovering opportunities and getting employed with Disney. So what sort of requirements do they have and how you can get a job with them. And then later in the year on April 24th, we have a workshop on buying a car. So how to get finances and try to help you guys buy a car. So all of our workshops are posted on our website under our upcoming events. We also have a newly launched volunteer program to help you get involved. So if you're interested in giving back to your community, building your resume, we have our new time volunteer program. So this month's activity is going to be on Saturday, March 16th. We will be helping out at a food expo, collecting and organizing food in Anaheim from 2:30 to 7:30 p.m. And then on March 20th, we're doing a beach cleanup day from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. So those are all posted on our website as well. We encourage you to get involved. We're here to help if you need anything. So for that, I am going to turn it over to our friends from Banc of California, and I want to welcome Tom and Jennifer. Jennifer is going to be presenting to us and talking to us today about how to prepare for college and finances and all the stuff that goes into that. So Jennifer, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Valentine, and I am the Assistant Vice President, Assistant Compliance Manager here with Banc of California. I've been here almost 5 years. Prior to that, I worked for Wells Fargo, and before that, I worked for Bank of America. I have roughly about 12 years banking experience, and my journey through funding education is not necessarily, it probably is actually unique. When I decided to go back to school, like a majority of people, you're trying to figure out how you're going to pay for it. And for me, being in the banking background, I wanted to be able to fund my education with little to no debt. I'm pretty sure everybody has heard of the student loan crisis and how much people are having to repay for student loans, and just having that debt and how that is actually inhibit people from reaching some of their financial goals of owning a home or maybe prolonging starting a family, just all these things that can contribute to not being able to meet some of the life goals that you want because of this debt. So what I am here to talk to you guys about is how to be able to afford college debt-free, no matter your circumstances, whether you are going to college for the first time, you've been incarcerated, you come from a good background, you come from a background where there's difficulties or whatnot, you can overcome that and still be able to pursue higher education and be able to pursue it without the huge student loan debt that a lot of people have been accumulating just to fund their education. So a little bit about me. I do have a master's degree in business administration with an emphasis in management. I did my undergraduate at the University of Phoenix, as well as my graduate degree. My education overall cost roughly about $75,000, and I have zero student debt. Now, how I was able to do that is I was working at Bank of America when I actually decided to go back and pursue higher education. Not only for my own personal development, but the more education you have, you could possibly go into higher positions and possibly earn more money. And especially during this economy with inflation, definitely trying to put myself in a driver's seat to earn more, to get opportunities that may not be available to me had I not had the education. So I decided to go back to school, and I was looking if my company actually provide a tuition reimbursement, and it did. And it provided tuition reimbursement. I had to be employed there for at least 6 months, and then they would provide up to a certain amount of tuition reimbursement, and I would be able to take my courses as long as the education or the courses that I was taking fell within the guidelines of my degree for banking and finance or so forth. So and this could happen like if you work at other organizations for arts such as Google or Apple or something like that. But for me, strictly for business administration. So when I decided to go back to school, I looked at the resources that my company offered, and they did offer tuition reimbursement. So Bank of America paid for my bachelor's degree. And once I completed my bachelor's degree, an opportunity opened up for me to go to Wells Fargo. And from Wells Fargo, I was there for roughly about 6 months. And I decided that I wanted to get my master's degree. So again, I looked around, talked to my manager, talked to my supervisor, and see what opportunities and what financial assistance was available or tuition reimbursement. And they also offer tuition reimbursement. So they were able to pay for my master's degree. Now, the company does this for a variety of reasons. It's beneficial for them because they're investing in their employees, as well as for me, I'm also getting on the job training. I'm working there, and they're also compensating me for my job, but also paying for my education. So it was really a win-win situation. The company wanted me to earn more skills, as well as I wanted to earn my degree. So it worked out really well. And after completing my degree, I stayed with Wells Fargo for a little bit of time, and then the opportunity opened up for me to come to Pacific Western Bank, and then recently had the opportunity to move over to Banc of California. So that is just kind of my education journey, kind of paying for school. Before I continue, does anybody have any questions? No, no questions? Okay, perfect. So how to fund your education. So first you want to kind of do a self-assessment or check in and see, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I want to do with my life, career-wise, or so forth? So if you want to be in digital media, or if you want to be an engineer, you want to decide exactly what is it that you want to do, and then look for companies that are within that scope of what you're looking to do. So then once you do that, you look at, the companies and their benefits. Do they even offer tuition reimbursement? Some actual places or companies offer up to $20,000 a year for tuition reimbursement. I know there's other financial institutions that offer up to 10,000. Google is a great company, and they have a variety of different positions, from engineers to designers to any position you can think of at Google, and they do offer tuition reimbursement. Now, for those that may have been incarcerated, there is also ways that you can get tuition assistance as well, and that is actually through the government. It's called the FAFSA program. Just allow me one moment. I'm going to bring over my information here. And this is actually for individuals who have been incarcerated or had felonies or anything or so forth like that. This is a special program just specifically for you to go and apply. And it's called the 2425 FAFSA form for confined and incarcerated individuals. This is a program specifically for you, for those who are looking to make a change for the better and change your life. So this is a great program, and all you have to do is just Google it. It will pop up, and they have it in both English and Spanish, and you'll fill out your information and they will be able to provide you with information on how much you qualify to pay for college. And some of these are Pell Grants. You do not have to pay this back, and they can pay for your room and board as well as your books, and possibly even provide you spending money. So there's a lot of resources out there. You just have to be willing to take the time and do some research and look into that. And especially in, specific cities, your junior colleges, your community colleges, nonprofit organizations, they can also provide you with resources that will be able to kind of guide you on how to pay for education, as well as if there's any type of housing vouchers or food vouchers while you're going to school. When I was going to school, I was fortunate enough that I was able to work full-time and go to school full-time. It was challenging, but I was able to do it. For some people, that situation may not be realistic, because sometimes if you're taking multiple units, you may not be able to do both. So those resources are out there. You just have to be willing to just take a little bit of time and do some research. And organizations like the one that I'm speaking at right now, H.I.R.E, they're great. They have a lot of resources that they will be able to provide you, or at least connect you with the right people to get you the assistance that you need. So before I continue, I want to pause and see if anybody has any questions.
Hey, Jen, I don't have a question, but more of a comment based on something that you said that I've been considering more recently. When you mentioned the idea of researching for companies to see if they have any incentives for their employees to say go to school, one of the other things I've been thinking about recently is return on investment. And what I mean by that is, while you're researching other companies to see if they do have like an incentive program for you to go to school, another good thing would be to consider, what is it that I'm interested in doing for a living? Researching that job to see how much it pays and what the benefits are, and how much it costs to go to school for that job. So I'll just give you a quick example. So my youngest is a doctor, and she went to school for 8 years. And I won't tell you how much she paid, but it was 6 figures. So you have to weigh that amount that you're paying for your education based on the salary that's going to return in the end. So just like use simple math to figure out, okay, well, if I'm going to end up owing $250,000 in student loans, and I'm only going to make $115,000 a year, is it worth it to have a $3,000 a month payment for that education that you're going to be paying on for 30 years? So it's just something I've been thinking about more recently as far as preparing for college, like putting that time in to research how much you're actually going to make in that position once you're finished. Because, I mean, if you're going to end up owing more than you're earning, it ends up being a wash in my mind. So
absolutely. And you raise an excellent point. And this is, one of the things that we definitely teach in financial literacy is return on investment and so forth. So if you're going to go to school and your education is going to cost upwards of $100,000, you want to definitely do research on the career to ensure that it's going to be a good return on investment. Excellent point there. And also, when you're deciding about going back to school, look at the colleges that you're also going to be looking at, especially colleges that are in state. The state that you live in are going to be a lot cheaper than schools that are out of state. Also, you want to look at public colleges. Those are going to be less expensive than your private universities. So, for example, if you're going to go to school for, let's say, business administration, like I did, Cal State LA has a great business administration program. Cal Poly Pomona has a great administrator program. I'm here in California. Those are great colleges, public colleges, and they're going to cost a fraction of the cost. Now, I could go to my private universities such as USC, Pepperdine, where and that was a decision that I had to make as well, where you're going to pay upwards of $75,000, $80,000 a year for the same degree. When I decided to go back to school, that was one thing that I had to look at, because I was offered to go to Pepperdine, but I was also offered to go to the University of Phoenix. Phoenix was only $20,000 a year. Pepperdine was $75,000 a year. So I still have the same degree, still master's degree, but the return on investment is an excellent point that you bring up, Thomas. Absolutely.
Yeah, so right now, as you mentioned, the average cost to go to a Cal State is like 5,700 compared to a UC, like over 14 grand.
Absolutely. And that's absolutely. And that is kind of on the small scale. So for example, this past summer, I went to USC. My husband was taking a class there, and I just happened to just drop him off because the parking was absolutely monstrous. But I went online just to see how much like the basic undergraduate program is for USC. So and this is just nothing fancy, no law degree, no medical degree. This was just a basic degree in business administration. And it came to 4 years, almost $400,000. Now, imagine being a 17 or 18-year-old making those decisions, just signing on the dotted line, I want this education. And then when you graduate, $400,000 is there staring you in the face. That is very challenging for someone who is 22, 23. When you signed it, you didn't necessarily know what you were getting into. You knew you wanted to go to school, but you didn't know how you were going to pay for it. So now, going back to the point where I was talking about at the beginning, that some of those life goals that you want are going to have to take a back burner, because buying a house when you have $400,000 debt, that creates the debt income ratio. It's going to be lower. Also, I don't have kids, but I hear that they are expensive. So if you have kids or wanting to have kids, you have to take into consideration, like, how much is it going to cost to, provide the education that you want, feed the children, and so forth. So all of those decisions are going to have to be delayed because of this blooming debt.
Jen, I was just going to make a comment, not a question, but a comment just beside that. So yeah, I dating myself here a little bit, but when I came out of high school, it was the same thing. We were extremely low income, my family, and college definitely was an option. Didn't have a computer. This is back when internet was still, starting. But I was getting recruited nationwide. I didn't know the difference between public, private, D1, D3, etc. I always share this story because it's comical in retrospect, and I'm glad it worked out for me, but nobody should ever choose a college based off of this. I literally chose my university based off the mascot. Because I was I have all these options. Am I going to be a wave at Pepperdine? I'm going to be a duck at Oregon? Whatever. I chose to be a bulldog. So I went to University of Redlands. And found out very quickly the price tag on a private university, and being a poor kid coming into that, it was quite a culture shock. And again, making that decision at 17, coming out at 21 with that debt, and it's even more now. But definitely went the wiser route, if you will, for my master's degree. I went through UCI and got my master's for the entire master's degree for, I think, 1/4 that I paid for my undergrad. And so definitely weighing those options, and we're happy to help too if anyone is looking to research schools and stuff, because I have been down that path and found out the hard way some of those sticker costs and stuff. And again, I love my education, love the university, it was worth it, but in retrospect, if I would have known kind of the financial implications I would have had afterwards, I may have made a different decision coming out the gate. So
understandable. And there is also scholarships to pay for your education. It's not just your employer. There's also scholarships, and there is just a plethora of information. There is actual nonprofit organizations that will have lists of different scholarships. And there is so many different criteria, whether you are a minority, if you come from a single parent home, if you are majoring in a certain subject. There is all these different scholarships, and some of them it's very minimal to apply. So if you need to write an essay or just fill out information and provide data, go to an interview. There's just so many ways to apply, to be able to afford college. Even if you don't go through the path that I went through, which is through my employer. Now, also, I think one thing that I haven't necessarily touched on that sometimes gets a bad rap, and that is your local junior college. Here in California, the first 2 years of junior college, I believe coming out of high school, is free. That you can go get all of your general education courses done, give yourself an opportunity to figure out exactly what you want to major in, take courses that you think that you want to, the direction you want to go in your career. And if it doesn't work out, you can go ahead and make that change and pivot without the financial strains. Now, part of my education journey is that I switched my major 6 different times throughout that journey. So to switch 6 times and still to come out without student debt, that's a rarity. So definitely look at your junior colleges, community colleges in your local area, and you'll be able to take classes and be able to kind of just explore and touch base and see exactly what is the direction that you want to go and so forth. Does anybody have any questions before I continue?
Hey, Jen, one of the things when you were talking about the scholarship opportunities and such, there's one like place that you can go that I never would have thought of in a million years where you can go that has a really good listing. The U.S. Department of Labor has a scholarship search tool. I don't know why it's the Department of Labor, but it's there. And it has everything broken down like on the left-hand column of different things that you can search by. Like you mentioned, things like ethnicity, race, gender, organizations that you belong to, whether or not you're going to be in a fraternity or a sorority. Things like one of the things that my oldest daughter ended up getting was a scholarship based on I already forget it right now, but it was very specific and something I never would have thought of in a million years. But yeah, so there's definitely things that you can search by that are very specific that you may qualify for. U.S. Department of Labor. Very strange, but it's there.
Very strange, but that's great information and a great resource. And we'll see about connecting and providing the link. So people who watch this will be able to kind of go and get that information. Now, I also want to touch base on those who have started school, maybe stopped, or those who have some student debt, didn't finish their degree. There are some companies that will actually provide you tuition reimbursement to help pay for those student loans that you did acquire without having the knowledge to select, whether public school, private school, or you were like me, you switched your major multiple times and now you have this debt. There are some companies that actually do have it in their budget to provide you that student loan payment, I believe it's called, in their budget, that they will actually provide you that financial assistance to help you pay on some of your debt as well. Okay, no questions? No? Okay, perfect. Well, just basing off of different scholars and so forth, there is, I want to call it, I guess, opportunities for those who were incarcerated or trying to make a change or so forth. So one of the websites that I was able to locate was actually the Los Rios Community College District. And if you just Google that, they have all these scholars and scholarships and so forth that provide information on how to apply for those that have been incarcerated or have a record. And just different programs that you can kind of tap into. And that was just a basic Google search. Now, again, do a little bit more information, a little bit more research. You'll be able to really kind of hone in and just gather all the information that you're looking for to be able to fund your education and so forth. I think that's all that I have. Again, if you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I can leave my information, and I'll be happy to shoot you an email and provide you as much assistance and information that I have.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. Great information, Jen.
Mm.
Anyone have any final questions or anything?
I have a question actually.
Yes.
So I was just wondering, for the companies that do help with like provide tuition assistance, what are the requirements? Like, could you be a part-time student? Do you have to do certain majors?
Excellent question. So depending on the company, they do have their own specific requirements, but just as a general, you would need to be either a part-time or full-time employee. Now, for where I got my bachelor's, Bank of America, they did have requirements for the classes that I was going to be taking, as well as for the degree. So for example, if you're working in a financial institution, you're not going to possibly get reimbursement if you are an art major. There are specific classes that you can take that you can get reimbursed on, but for your overall degree, a financial institution will probably not compensate you fully for an arts degree. So you would definitely, again, want to look at the company to see what specific requirements that they have. Typically, after you've been provided tuition reimbursement, the company, of course, they're investing in you. They will request that you remain with the company up until a certain amount of time, anywhere between 6 months to a year after they provided you that financial assistance, because they also want to get a return on investment as well. They've already invested in you. They want to utilize you and utilize that knowledge and skills that you've acquired at these colleges. They want to put that to use at their organization. So that's another requirement that some organizations will have. Excellent question.
Yeah, I like to give myself as an example in this too, because I work at Banc of California as well. I'm not a typical banker, however. So when it comes to whether or not I would take that incentive that the bank offers in the tuition reimbursement, like Jen was saying, the tuition reimbursement is for the purposes of you furthering your education within your area of expertise that you're currently in. So even though you work for a bank, if you end up working for a department that is not so banky, as we'll say, then maybe you can go get a degree in something else. So I'll use myself for an example, right? So it's easier for me to say that I'm a banker, even though my role at the bank is I'm a community outreach officer, and I have nothing to do with money whatsoever for the most part. I do community outreach work. I work with community-based organizations, government entities, and the like. So if I was to take advantage of a program like this, I certainly would have the option to do like business administration or something like that. But it potentially opens me up for the ability to do something like a public administration bachelor's, because that's within the scope of expertise that my job is within. So as long as you kind of fit that mold, then it should work within the company guidelines.
Excellent point. And I just want to touch on one thing before we wrap up here. We're talking about bachelor's and master's degree, but I also want to talk about trade schools. And I also want to talk about certifications as well. Some people, their educational journey may not require a full bachelor's degree or master's degree. It may just require a certificate that is maybe a 3-month program. Companies also will provide reimbursement for that as well. So for example, for me, I recently took the CRCM exam. Now this is just a certification. They provided me the reimbursement to take that certificate. To apply for that certificate, the education, and to obtain that certificate. So that's also something. So if a 4-year school is not ideal for you going to school for another 4 years or 8 years, look at your local trade schools. There is nothing wrong with an 8-month program, a 6-month program where you get a certificate for that trade. We need that. We need plumbers, we need carpenters, we need paralegals, and those don't necessarily take a 4-year, 8-year college degree. Sometimes that takes maybe a 4 or 6-month program or certificate, especially for those who cannot go to school full time and do for 4 years for whatever reason, that life circumstances, you're not able to do that. So that's something to also consider as well, is trade schools.
Yeah, and then when you do the trade schools too, don't forget to do your FAFSA, because sometimes you can get money through FAFSA in order to pay for that trade school. So it's doing the FAFSA is kind of like the key, because it unlocks your potential for many educational paths. So yeah.
On that note, do you guys know when the FAFSA is due each year for the school year?
Yeah, for the state of California, you want to make sure that you have your FAFSA in before April. They changed it. It's usually in March, but I think it's April 10th right now. That's not the overall deadline for FAFSA. That's the deadline in the state of California if you want to make sure that you qualify for the Cal Grant. So if you're gonna be eligible for the Cal Grant, you want to do your FAFSA even earlier. The deadline for the FAFSA in total, though, is in June. I don't have the dates memorized, but it's June. But as a California resident, if you're going to go to school, you want to get it in before the April deadline. If you wait till June, you won't qualify for the Cal Grant. Nice thing about the Cal Grant, that's free money that you don't have to pay back. And then depending on what institution you go to, there's several different types of Cal Grant A, B, C, with different awards. But yeah, so make sure that you get it in before the California deadline.
Absolutely. And there's also something called book waivers too. So will waive the cost of books. So I know a lot of textbooks are online now. However, each textbook for each course can be upwards of $150. So you can always apply for a book waiver or a book grant too. And that you can also do through FAFSA.
Yes, and I just realized too, along these lines of paying for college, I actually, again, speaking of how long I've been out of this, I don't know if it's still valid or not, but I know years ago, there was also that program, if you worked in like nonprofit or like certain schools in certain areas, that like, if it was like 10 years of paying your loans on time, the rest would then be forgiven. Is that still in place as well? Do you guys know? Or
yeah,
it is. Yeah, and I believe it's the public service discharge or something like that. That is still around. You are correct.
Yeah,
you would need to work for the like nonprofit or for your local city or municipal and so forth. And if you make your payments for 10 years consistently, then they will go ahead and forgive the rest of your debt. However, I would advise to definitely look at the fine print, because there has been, unfortunately, some people that have fallen through the cracks with that. They paid the 10 years, but for whatever reason, they didn't meet this requirement or they didn't meet this requirement or so forth. So you definitely want to do your due diligence to ensure that you are checking every single box if that's an option that you want to do, to also forgive your student loan debt that you already have.
And I'll chime in on this. Don't think that because you're going to medical school, that if you go work for a hospital, who technically a hospital would be a nonprofit, that you qualify for that, for what we're talking about. I have it on really good authority that this is not the case. So for whatever reason, I'm not quite sure why a company will just say it's called H.I.R.E, doesn't qualify as a nonprofit for this specific reimbursement. As my understanding is right now, that is not the case. So don't think that if you're going to go to medical school and you're going to practice medicine at, we'll just call the company Kaiser, that if you work there for 10 years, that they will pay your loans off. That is not the case to my understanding.
Right.
Also, I knew I had those FAFSA dates. I wanted to mention it. So the California deadline to make sure that you get it in for the Cal Grant is April 2nd of this year. And then the federal deadline for the FAFSA is June 30th.
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm laughing about it. Maybe it's types of nonprofits that, so maybe like, because they have a different classification with the healthcare.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so
Um,
just make sure that it's a 501c3, I think,
Okay.
Yeah.
not a
Definitely wanna do your due diligence.
501(6)(b) or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the loophole I ran into, well, again, timing of this is they created that program. I'd already been paying for like 7-8 years, how many ever years it was. And so then I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to get it. And then when I started doing the math, I was like, I can actually pay mine off before the 10 years. So do I drag this out paying? Or so I think I paid it off like on year 9 or something like that. I would have qualified for it. But so yeah, definitely look at like the fine print, but I wasn't sure if that still existed. So it's good to know that it's still out there.
Absolutely. It still does exist, but you definitely want to do your due diligence for sure.
Awesome. Any other questions or anything? Final comments? Awesome. Well, this has been super informative. I really appreciate you coming, both of you guys coming and sharing, with our group. And we look forward to you guys coming back, I think in a couple months. We'll be having another program, or another workshop related to college and some other programs and stuff out there. So check out our website, and we look forward to having you guys back in a few months. So thanks again.
Of course. Thank you so much
Thanks for having
having
us.
me.